How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Guys, a teacher's worst nightmare. Right now, Abby Zwerner is in a civil lawsuit because she was shot by a 6-year-old. And today, we are going to cover everything in detail. My partner today will be Russ. I mean, what happened? What could have been done to prevent this? What wasn't done in the moment? I mean, there's so much here, especially now that it's going through the civil lawsuit, that there is to discuss, including a civil lawsuit that's $40 million being requested. This is a very interesting case. It's trending. And guys, if you like what we covered, don't forget, I do have a buy me a cup of coffee. Please, you'll find the link to the description. If you do like the material, please feel free to help support the content. All right, let me get Russ. What up, Russ?
Good morning, Anthony. How's it going, sir?
Good. Russ, a teacher's worst nightmare, huh?
Yeah, to say the least, and in a lot of ways that we're going to uncover and that we're going to talk about and get into here.
Yeah, Russ, you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. My name is Russ Hamilton. I'm a former and now retired sergeant from California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I'm also a former senior juvenile correctional officer. I currently work for a company where we do reentry and rehabilitation work for a local county probation department and a local county jail where I'm a case manager. I'm also the founder of Keepers of Chaos, which is on Facebook, and that's a site that's dedicated towards supporting the great men and women of correctional law enforcement and every individual who works inside corrections. I am also an author of a book called Killing Complacency, Tactical Awareness for Correctional Professionals. And I think that about sums everything up.
So my wife is a teacher. I'm very familiar with teachers, also working in corrections. We work with educators. I actually, been working with overseeing education at some level on the administrative side. And I'm sure Russ has worked with a lot of educators as well in your time working in a prison, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge proportion of a lot of correctional facilities that's dedicated towards, educational requirements. Sometimes it's one of the things that they can use in California, for instance. They're called milestones. And by achieving, for instance, their high school diploma, if they get their high school diploma, they're usually eligible, at least at the jail level, for 20 days of good time credits. And so it's one of those things we try and dangle out there because it is one of the pieces of actually, putting people into a position where they can change their lives. It doesn't always work. It's not always easy. And it is sometimes fraught with danger, but it's one of the things that we work through and we work with.
Yeah, now for us, same thing. We have a duty to make sure that if people want education, we provide them with education, especially if they're under 21. That or 21 and under, that is required. And we do try to get them high school diplomas. But in worst case scenarios, we could get them general education degrees or GEDs. And also, we do provide chances for college classes. So we're very aware of what a safe classroom needs to be like. Correctional officers work it every day. I want to show you a video from Court TV, and after that, we're going to go ahead and break down this case. But there's a video. It's right before, I believe, the beginning of the civil lawsuit, because the civil lawsuit's happening right now, and I believe the plaintiff has rest, so we're on pause, and now it's the defense time to speak. I think it's kind of at that intersection. Okay, so this is a video. We'll kind of step back, and then after that, we'll come in.
And in Virginia, we've got the teacher who was shot by a 6-year-old student expected to take the stand today. Abby Zwerner suing the assistant principal of the school, Dr. Ebony Parker, for a sum of $40 million. And that is our top story here on Opening Statements. The jury waiting for Zwerner's story. And they're thinking about some compelling visual elements that were presented in the courtroom on Wednesday, we have no doubt. So we want to talk about this. How will this affect the jury? Look at this. This is body camera footage showing the first responders taking care of Zwerner right after she was shot. She left the courtroom before the jury took a look at this. So she did not watch this video of herself on that horrific day, arguably the worst day of her life. Another strong moment was when an orthopedic surgeon testified about Abby's hand strength. Look at this. They brought her up to demonstrate the impact of her injuries for the jury. Dr. Romney Anderson spoke to the damage that has been permanently done to her hand.
Abby's hand is never going to be a normal hand. It's not going to be like her other side. But we've got it pretty darn close, and a lot of it's attributed to how hard she worked with therapy to do that. I mean, you can do a perfect surgery. If the patient doesn't do any therapy, they're not going to get a good outcome. So she's done a lot of work. I think she's done remarkably well with the number of injuries she's had there, but it's never going to be a normal hand.
So will her hand strength and that demonstration we saw there garner some sympathy from the jurors? How compelling do you think that body camera footage was for the jury to see? Let's talk about it with our expert guest. Let's bring in jury consultant and human behavior expert Susan Constantine and criminal defense and civil attorney. He's also a celebrity attorney, as we call him, John Phillips. Good morning to you both. Susan, I want to start with you, please, in the body camera footage. We see her right after she's shot. She made her way out of the courtroom. What impact do you think these two things have for the jury? One, the video, and also the fact that if they're looking over at counsel table, she's not there.
You know, we talked about this before, Julie. Optics matter. And this is a highly visual but also emotional video, and every juror that's in that room that's seeing this unfold and seeing the triggering, the color of blood and how impactful that is, seeing her on the ground, also her skin turning pale, she's in shock, is going to have a psychophysiological response from those jurors. So keep in mind, jurors are primarily visual and they're also kinesthetic, which is emotional. The two strongest emotional impacts you could possibly have in rendering a really high award verdict. I mean, this is exactly what we look for in a plaintiff case. So it's going to have a huge impact. I don't think you can unsee it. Once it's there, it's imprinted. It's not going away.
For sure, Susan. I couldn't agree with you more. Let's look at a clip of that body camera footage together now.
How many times was she shot? How many gunshots did you hear? One.
Gunshot, okay.
Sorry, ma'am. We're going to get up close and personal with you, okay? Please.
You're okay.
Got actively bleeding right now.
Nothing on the lower.
Okay. I'm going to roll you over a moment, okay? I want to see if you're clean out. Okay. Go ahead and lift your arm a little bit. Okay. I have my mom. Are you okay anywhere else?
Yep.
John Phillips, want to tap into your lawyer brain on this one. Tell me, in terms of the strength that this gives to the plaintiff's case, your thoughts?
I love it. Not only from the perspective of the case, but from the reality of a shooting. I've represented victims in a lot of different shooting cases. And not only am I glad the jury saw it, every dang parent in America needs to face this reality. I'll get off the soapbox to go back to the question, but the trial lawyers here presenting this and doing so with their clientele both addresses the perception and the reality. The perception being, look, you do create a moment here and you're giving this video all of the weight it deserves, while also, kind of staging backstage with the client leaving and coming back and not sitting there, where the jury's watching them watch it. They're watching it. But it's very powerful. School shootings in America are like my hotbed issue with 13, 11, and 8-year-old kids. Teachers are under attack. And I'm leaning all the way forward on this case.
Yes, I know you are, John. Hey, I didn't mind you getting up on that soapbox. Go ahead, my friend. I share the sentiments that you have shared with us. And When we think about that video coming in, I know that defense counsel has a job to do. They wanted to really restrict a lot of the hearsay statements, even things that the plaintiff herself was saying. At one point, she said, please just tell me a story. In other words, distract me, take me out of this. And the judge ruled that we're going to play the video and not have those audio elements for fear of it being too prejudicial. John Phillips, legally, was that the right call?
It is certainly, you've got hearsay's exceptions. It's a year-long class basically for us lawyers, as you know, and there's excited utterances. There's certain statements that are allowed, but also as the plaintiff's lawyer, you kind of want the visuals to tell the story as well, and jurors wonder kind of what didn't I hear, but yeah, the judge did a good job and has broad discretion in these instances, but you got a powerful enough video. You don't need some of the more dramatic elements, even though, as the plaintiff's attorney, I would have argued for every single statement short of anything, prejudicial to my client, because it's like, Judge, this is the reality of a mass shooting. This is the pain and suffering. This is what she has to do to go through not just the immense physical pain, but emotional pain. And she was shot by a young child. Let's emphasize that.
Mm-hmm. Right, John. Yeah, and if they find liability here, then they'll make a determination of the compensation, as you know. So to your point, all of that could arguably go to that. Susan, I want to show another clip to you and get some analysis here. This is the hand demonstration that the doctor did with the plaintiff.
What about strength?
Oh, so grab both my fingers here. Just grab your hole. Just squeeze as hard as you can. This side would be considered normal. This is less than half.
Okay, Susan, how effective is it when you get the expert off the stand in front of the jury and you have one of the parties there with the expert?
When you demonstrate something visually, the impact is so huge that it's going to affect the jurors. When you see her fingers not really forming correctly, and this doctor is very credible. He's not overplaying the hand, so to speak, and it has impacted. You could actually see it, how it has deformed her hand. Everyone is looking at that. And the graphics of that are real. So they don't even have to force it. They don't have to play it up. I mean, the evidence is the evidence, and it speaks for itself, and that is enough to be able to get a really good verdict for this plaintiff.
Yes, and as we keep this video as the point of our conversation here, Susan, we can see the plaintiff and how she looks. We always talk about optics with every trial. So if you are new to the show, welcome. And so we're not just assessing this with Abby Zwerner. We do it with every single party to a case here. And so what are your thoughts on how they have her dressed for the trial?
I think they did a great job. I mean, I probably wouldn't have put her burgundy. But at the same time, you think about it, probably was a good move, because what she was emulating was the blood and trauma. So normally, if it were a defendant, I'd be going, oh, definitely don't put her in red, because it shows the trauma, the blood, of the gore. But here in this case, they want to show that. So I actually think that was a really good strategic move. And then, of course, the school sweater, right? Every teacher wears that little cardigan sweater. So I think it plays right into exactly who she is in real life. I don't think they had to play it hard. They're just doing what she does best, and that is being herself.
I agree with you, Susan. I love the white. I thought it looked really angelic on her, and the hair was just soft. She looks beautiful and authentic. And we always talk about how that's so important. You and John know authenticity is everything in trial work.
You're mute.
It's crazy how much goes into planning. I didn't even think about what she was wearing. The burgundy shirt, the sweater. That's interesting. Hey, Russ, I actually am happy that they showed that video. I'm sure the defense would not want it seen, but I think it's good to let people know beyond just what you're being told, how it truly affects, in the moment and that person. I think a lot of us just read something and then move forward. But when you see it happening in real time, it just takes the things from off the page and really puts you in it. So I'm glad they were able to show it, and that, I'm sure the defense would have argued that, but they need to see that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I kind of wonder a little bit about, the defense in this case, where obviously they want to, buck these particular things, but it really calls into question in my mind, why didn't they do more negotiation? Why did this have to end up in front of a jury? Why did this particular case get this far? It seems to me with all of this, evidence that can be introduced with the tape, with the clothing, with the doctor up there on the stand, what was the break point for this, where they just decided, no, we're gonna try and not do this, because now they're going to have some potentially very damaging testimony come forward, assuming that I've read this right, with regards to the things that they didn't do. This is not just a happenstance case where something bad happened and she got shot and she's going for the deep pockets. And I'm assuming we're going to get into it here. There's some deep lying culpability here with regards to what the school system failed to do.
Right. So this is the civil lawsuit. So one, there's less things, less requirements when it comes to, reasonable suspicion versus reasonable doubt. So I think this has less of a criteria, but also I think she's pushing for it because she wants it to be known. I think she wants it to go to a civil lawsuit, the teacher itself, their lawyer, their legal team. And remember, she put an amount of $40 million. So the school probably is being forced to go into this. You're right. I agree with you. They may not want to, but I think this teacher and her team are trying to make a bigger message. And that's why I hope that we could connect on this as well, because I think there is a bigger message here. But I agree with you 100%. I think the school would try to maybe do a quiet settlement, but she went for $40 million. So the school may not be in a position to settle this quietly. So I want to just quickly go over the incident again. I got some questions that I'm going to throw towards us for the discussion. But again, I have some stuff I want to cover. I took it from her hour and change testimony and also some recent updates from the civil trial. So we're going to kind of progressively move forward. We're learning on this case as well. And usually how me and Russ do it is we kind of look at it independently and then we come here and just try to piece it together. But in the process, we're learning it as well. So we may say stuff at the very beginning and then we may backtrack a little bit because we're learning as we go. So it was a quiet January afternoon in Newport News, Virginia, inside room 11 at Richneck Elementary first grade teacher Abby Zwerner, 25, was helping her students sound out words. Construction paper snowflakes hung above the whiteboard, the kind of ordinary scene you'd never imagine turning into breaking news. At 2 p.m. on January 6, 2023, one of her 6-year-old students stood, reached into his pocket, and fired a 9mm Taurus pistol. The bullet ripped through Abby's left hand, then into her upper chest. Somehow she stayed on her feet long enough to shepherd every child out of the classroom, locking eyes with the last one before collapsing in the hallway. I have a picture of this Taurus pistol. Let me just show you this. I saved it. I'll just show you right here. Hold on. It's a Taurus pistol. I don't think it's the same one the kid used, but this is similar to what it would look like. It's a small little gun. Something I've seen even women carry in their purse. The bullet ripped through Abby's left hand, then into her upper chest. Somehow she stayed on her feet long. I read that. Shepherd, blah, blah, blah. All right, sorry. Classroom locking eyes with the last one before. Let me just reread it again. The bullets ripped through Abby's left hand, then into upper chest. Somehow she stayed on her feet long enough to shepherd every child out of the classroom, locking eyes with the last one before collapsing in the hallway. In court, Abby described the split second before the shot. The child's face looked very blank, but it wasn't a blank look at all. She raised her hand instinctively, then everything went black. When consciousness flickered back, 2 coworkers were over her, pressing on the wounds. She literally said, "I thought I had died. I was either in heaven or on my way." She survived 6 surgeries. A fragment remains near her heart, and her left hand will never fully close again. The day she saved her class is also the day she lost the career she loved. She's no longer a teacher, from what I'm finding out. Within minutes, the school went into lockdown. Parents rushed to the building, some learning through frantic texts from their children that a kid shot the teacher, the unthinkable had happened, and an entire community would be forced to reckon with how. Now, Russ, and I think this is a great question to start off with. What do teachers reasonably expect when they walk into a classroom, and how does this case redefine safe work environments for educators? You talk to teachers, even working in corrections. What do they expect in their classrooms?
Well, in order to teach, you have to have, first of all, a level of safety. When I look at the things that surround this particular issue, though, it appears to me, and of course, I'm just, from the outside looking in, yet I have a lot of experience dealing with this kind of thing. It seems to me like they were kind of, brushing things off in a manner of they weren't taking the threat that was presented to them very seriously. This was, something that was being talked about, the teachers. This was something of a rumor that this was going to happen today. It doesn't appear that they had identified, and maybe I'm wrong about this, that they had not identified the specific child, but it was certainly something that was on their radar, and they just didn't take it serious in any manner whatsoever. They didn't run down the leads. They didn't lock down the classrooms. They didn't do anything that I would have instituted in a situation like that. You're mute.
That's a great question, Russ. I think that they did know who the child was.
Well, that only makes it worse, though.
Yeah, that's why I want to make sure so we're going to get into that, but I believe they did know who the child was. Now, I know, like my wife being a teacher, there were always concerns about the school looking like a war zone or like a prison versus, a friendly environment. But we've already been through this where schools are vulnerable targets. So when you put measures in play, I know a lot of people they don't like the optics, but the feeling may feel okay, though, because you have a feeling that everything's being done to protect our children. This is the most vulnerable of targets. So if you got to put those extra measures in play, why not? And the old argument is we do it when it comes to transporting money. Money seems to have all these high security things tied to it. But when it comes to our children, we leave them vulnerable. To be honest with you, I'm okay because I know how the world works, sadly. I know what the world is coming to, sadly. So I'm okay with measures that need to be implemented for the safety of the school. And if I was ever to be positioned with those who rather choose optics over safety and security, it's not even a debate. Not in our world. I don't really care about what things tend to look like, because I will tell you something right now. Children tend to understand a lot more than we give them credit for. And if you could phrase it in a way that it's about them being protected, then I think they feel a level of ease, especially when they start to meet the people that are doing it, the good people behind it, the SRO officers that are touring these schools and making a difference every day. You could paint a picture for them that welcomes this, that also gives a level of respect for the work that's being done to protect our children. But when I talk to my wife, the one thing that she cares about the most is that, unfortunately, now you have threats that come from within. But, the external threat, she wants to make sure that, when her classroom starts, that there are no concerns with anything coming from the outside in. That's a big concern for her. But also now what has evolved are the concerns that are coming from the inside that somehow bypass school security and now are sitting right in the classroom with the teacher. And my wife being a preschool teacher, she couldn't even imagine seeing a 6-year-old as a threat. That's why I think it was great for this video, because this could show you the dangers of what a 6-year-old kid could do with a gun in his hand. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, and I was just looking up what the specific threat indicators were on that day, because the story that I had read before, being done by the predominant media cultists, they had really like downplayed, at least in the story that I read, just that they were saying that there was more of a, not their words but my words, that there was more of a a generic threat out there. And yet they had apparently searched this kid's backpack. Another student had come in off of the yard and said that this student had showed them a gun. She had texted the principal or the vice principal rather, and then they had got to the point where apparently the principal at some point had just said, well, the day is almost over. I mean, what the actual in that case, there's being nothing done, to isolate this student. There's being nothing done to be sure that there's no threat. They're just kind of letting things develop as they go. And this is a real sign of a real deep-seated level of institutional complacency.
Yeah, because there's definitely neglect. The one of the people on the testimony, one of the teachers asked if they could pat the child's pockets down. That's where I think it was the vice principal said that, no, the mother's going to be here shortly. But as we're going to progress, we're going to discuss that, because also the moment there's any concern about a gun threat, why are you not calling local authorities? That's the first thing that should have been done immediately. I think even the teachers, trying to get, preemptive or whatever, trying to, find out where the weapon is, authorities should have been called. So now students, so this is where we learn a little bit more about the student. So the shooter was 6, but his behavioral record read like that of a much older, deeply troubled youth. So there's some warning signs here. In kindergarten, he choked a teacher until she couldn't breathe. I'm trying to look into how he managed to do that, but there's not that much information on that, but it's there. By 1st grade, he was swearing at staff, chasing children with a belt, and breaking school property. 2 days before the shooting, he smashed Ms. Zwerner's phone, earning a 1-day suspension. So the funny thing is, it makes you think, was Zwerner a target, or was she an act of random violence? Can a 6-year-old premeditate? That's a question, because I know we're having discussions right now with juvenile justice, one with the Jesse Mack Butler case, and the other one with Amerie's case, the young little 5-year-old girl that was beaten, assaulted, sexually assaulted. Just the worst could have happened to somebody, and she was only 5. But the scary part about this is the kids that did it, they were 10, 9, and 8, a 10-year-old female. I've done videos on that. So juvenile justice is definitely coming to the range. Do you guys think a 6-year-old can premeditate? I mean, he broke the girl's phone and then literally comes in and points the gun at a teacher. What's that say about culpability for a 6-year-old? The family described. I'll get Russ.
I was going to say just a little bit, in my digging on this thing. So in the thing where he is alleged to have choked or strangled the teacher, he allegedly came from behind this teacher, locked his forearms around her neck. This is, what we call a rear naked chokehold, and pulled her backwards. And that's exactly what happens. He was moved to a different school. It doesn't say which one because of that. I'm starting to call into question here, and I know this is just me spitballing. But I'm calling into question whether or not he was actually 6 years old. Something is missing from this, and so I just don't know that this is necessarily on the up and up with regards to his age.
So Russ, you said that first off, thank you for all that. Hey Russ, did he? So was he removed from that first school and sent to this school?
It doesn't say whether he was sent to this school. It says that he was sent to a different school. But that part is not clear in what I was able to dig up on this.
So it doesn't tell you where the first where that first incident occurred?
It does not. And it's just one of those things that it's a little bit limited, and yet this particular incident was apparently well documented enough that it got to this point where this perfectly describes what we would call a rear naked chokehold. from behind, which is, basically, the arm comes around, he interlocks the forearms and brushes down, and that could cut off your breathing, it could cut off your your carotids, you could easily lose consciousness. I have a hard time understanding and believing that a child could generate that much force and power on an adult. And so there's a lot of things that are really being brought into question here. And so I'm questioning his actual age here, because I'm just wondering if something funny has been done with the birth certificate or something else, because this does not make sense to me.
Yeah, and by the way, just so you know, my wife is about 110, and if you get an average 6-year-old that's about 45 to 50 pounds, and they jump on behind her and hold her by her neck and push down, that's half my wife's body weight.
Yeah,
it's not impossible. That was great.
It's not impossible, but at the same time, there still is a disparity in weight and ability there. But there is something with this that is like really, really, truly out of whack.
Yeah, I wonder what the school. I mean, how you charge your 5-year-old? Do you charge your 6-year-old? Hey, Russ, that was a really good find. I appreciate that, because I was looking into that. I couldn't get it.
Yep.
So the family, of course, they're going to give excuses for the kid. The family described an acute disability. In school practice, that signals a high-intensity emotional behavioral condition needing very close adult support. He had an individualized education plan, so it's an IEP for emotional disabilities that once required a parent to accompany him in class, a critical safeguard that was lifted the week of the shooting. No equivalent intervention replaced it. And I got that from a news source. So basically there was a parent, maybe we could look into that a little bit, but there was a parent that was with him during these classes. Then eventually the week before the shooting, the parent was, I guess we're all good, the parent can leave. And because of his age, he could not be criminally charged. So he was removed from the school and received psychological treatment. Current status is sealed under privacy rules. So Russ, when a child's aggression is chronic and dangerous, where is the line between inclusion and protecting others, students, staff, and the child themselves? And guys, we're very familiar with this, because when you work in corrections, you are trying to maintain safety and security. And sometimes there's threats. And it's like, well, what do you do with the threat and then still balance their personal rehabilitation? And then that's the debate right now. But Russ, what's your thoughts on that?
Certainly we do see, a lot of situations where, we have to find alternative housing and alternative, forms of, if you will, just, housekeeping with regards to, any particular individual. I don't know why school in a situation like this with someone who is certainly an outlier type, that I would certainly place this kid in. Why did they not, absolutely suspend him? Why did they, not take, action in order to keep him at home? He certainly, presents, if he presents a threat to a teacher, he certainly presents a threat to other children. So once again, I think this is, just unfortunately one of those things where the failures within, the broader educational system are just, manifest. And this really actually hurts all of education. If these kids are worried about, going out to the playground because of this kid, how are they getting an education? So I think once again, it's just, a failure. There's people that, they just want to, toe the absolute, political correctness line. Well, everybody should be included. Yeah, whatever. That doesn't really cut it when we're trying to, provide the maximum amount of safety for the most amount of people. There's just places where you simply can't, when you throw everything in the barrel, it just overflows. And then whatever flows out is just, that part where safety has just been disavowed at every level. And I think this is just more of, political correctness.
Yeah. And guys, it's funny how we view success and failure. Like, success is also preventing. Like, I sometimes people rather push trouble under the rug because they figure that, you know what, if this happens, it makes the school look bad. So let's keep this hush hush and let's not do anything about it. But at the end of the day, the rug starts to pile up, and now you got excuses that you cannot justify. You know, you got all these things that were already known that you failed to act on, and most likely the reason relates to some level of vanity. It's some level of vanity because I'm the leader of the school. I don't want the school to look bad because it makes me look bad. No, when you react and you do what's correct, I think that's what brings in a better picture. Oh, Russ got the gun. There it is. That's the Taurus pistol, 9mm. So that's a small gun, Russ. I mean, I could see a kid holding that, right?
Yeah, and
what do you have the measurements?
Since he's big enough to choke a teacher, allegedly, you know, we don't know how big this kid is, but
Russ, do you have the measurements of that gun at all?
Yeah, I can find them real quick if you want to know them.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see because mind you, this gun would have been the mother's gun. So I could see it, no judgment here, but I could see a female carrying this gun because it's a smaller gun. I'm curious about how big the gun is, and then you got a small.
Yeah,
I don't know how big the kid is.
The overall length is 6.3 inches with a barrel length of 3.2 inches.
Yeah,
it's 5 inches tall and 1.5 inches wide.
How much does it weigh? Do you know?
It weighs 22 ounces. Yeah. There's a 12 round capacity.
12 rounds.
Oftentimes with pistols, there's multiple models and submodels, and so we're not exactly sure. This is my best guess as to what it is. There could be a further more chopped down version like this. I have one that's essentially almost identical to this, as a matter of fact.
Really?
But mine is in the 22. It's the Taurus 22 model of pretty much that.
Hey, Russ, and do you admit that sometimes a lot of the preventive measures that could have been done is because you may have people in leadership that want to protect their face?
Yeah, they want to do that. I go back to, some of the complacency, like normalcy bias is one thing that I would look at. They just want this to be another normal day. The other thing is just the complacency of routine, where they don't really believe that anything outside the routine of what they're used to is going to happen. And then I think that there's also something that I talk about a lot, which is denial. And they just want to deny that anything bad is going to happen, and they hold on to that. I was involved in an incident similar in ways to this, but not involving a firearm, where I had really good evidence that an inmate was holding a weapon. And as I went to go discuss this with some people, one of the peace officers, believe it or not, said that an inmate in possession of a weapon is not an emergency. And needless to say, I came up out of the chair in a way where my captain had to hold me back from this individual. And the captain, absolutely went to my bail, saying, "No, this is an actual emergency, and we're gonna do what we need to do right now to make the situation safe." But if people at that level, who are ostensibly trained and knowledgeable, just want to do nothing in the face of treating it as an emergency, then understanding how they did so in this moment is understandable, but it's also unforgivable.
Yeah, and Russ, look, I found this video. I was going to play it real quick. This guy's showing the gun.
Owner, they will tell you that this is in high demand. Very much a budget-priced handgun. Taurus gives you 3 12-round magazines. Serrated black rear sight, pinned in front dot. They are Glock interchangeable. And a trigger, a single-action trigger that I'm measuring at 4.5 pounds with a reset. I've run all types of ammo through this, everything from hollow points to steel case to aluminum case. and I was very impressed with its performance. For any gun store owner, they will tell you that this is in high demand. Very much a budget priced handgun. Taurus gives you three 12-round.
So Russ, it says it's only 4 pounds to pull that trigger. Did you
yeah.
And then, hey, Russ, what's
so
the average?
Four is you know, for a pistol, what I would call, you know, it's kind of like on the medium side. You know, there's a lot of different, you know, beliefs about, you know, where you should, you know, have that trigger or not. It's not on the light side, but it's not on the real heavy side either.
And it's about $240 to buy the gun.
Yeah. So the question there is, you know, this is allegedly his mother's pistol.
It's the mother.
When she has a kid like that, why is she putting that into a position where he can get his hands on it at all? That's another, you know, element. That was one of the things that, you know, immediately cropped up in my mind, you know, when I first, you know, started familiarizing myself with this story.
Yeah, and again, cost is $240. Now you have to. I don't know if this matters, but for a 6-year-old, you got to see premeditation, because he got the gun from home, you know, however that was. I think we're gonna go over that a little bit, and then he brought it to school, and then he intentionally, it looks like, shot the teacher, because it looks like he had an incident with her before. So it's not that hard to put these two together. Now the question is going to be, do you hold that 6-year-old culpable? Now I want to talk about the mother real quick. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to come back to the mother as well. So
I have it. I got some stuff.
If you want to look at, you know, some of the contrasting charges here, one of the things, of course, that they're looking at is. Oh,
I got it, Russ. I'll break it down real quick and I'll send it to you.
Well, I wanted to bring in its significance to another case that we're all familiar with.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I apologize.
Okay. So what I was looking at here is you know, they're looking about her getting the gun and being able to, you know, actually, you know, fill out the paperwork that's required. So those of you that are familiar with what the federal paperwork looks like, it appears that she lied in this case.
I have that, Russ. I have
about her drug use, but we got to remember about Hunter Biden and what he was convicted of, which was exactly that.
Yeah, Russ, I have that. Hold on one second. That's the ATF form 4473.
Yeah.
I have it. So yeah, let me go, and then Russ, please, go into any connection you want. Let me just get this through first, and then however you want to go into it, I appreciate you. The mother of the gun home. Okay, so the boy's mother, Deja Taylor, was 25, the same age as Abby. She legally at first purchased the handgun in 2022, but falsely denied illegal drug use on ATF form 4473. That's the federal background check form required for all firearm purchases. Taylor was a regular marijuana user, which under federal law disqualified her from gun ownership. And then you have the unlocked gun and accessible tragedy at home. The gun was unsecured, sometimes in a purse. I said that. Sometimes on a dresser. Prosecutors believe her son climbed onto furniture, took the gun, and put it into his backpack, later moving it to his coat pocket at school. Afterwards, Taylor cried, "He's only 6. I'm so sorry." The consequences: federal conviction, false statement on firearm purchase form, possession while using marijuana is 21 months, the federal side. State conviction, felony child neglect, 2 years. An effective sentence, if she's, going to go through, is 27 to 30 months behind bars. Sentence structured to run largely concurrently. So concurrently is run together, not consecutive. Taylor's case became one of the first in Virginia where a parent faced serious prison time, specifically for a child's school shooting enabled by unsecure firearms. It became a national symbol of how unsafe storage can pierce the schoolhouse door, even with a first grader. So, Russ, should safe storage laws carry criminal penalties nationwide when minors access guns? How far should parental accountability extend? I mean, there's a lot you can go into in this section. So go ahead. And I apologize from before.
No problem. So what they did in this case, of course, there's a few different, parts that are federal. There's some parts that are state, and there's parts of these where, state also mirrors federal law. So I guess that she was looking at least, and I don't know exactly which court they, might be processing her through, but 18 USC, she was obviously, or at least according to them, allegedly using marijuana while possessing a firearm, making false statements on the ATF form 4473, which is exactly what Hunter Biden got in trouble for. The state charges is allowing him access to the firearm. She got 21 months, I think, in federal prison, 6 months in state prison. Like you said, I believe that those were all run concurrently. And so when you look at that, there's nothing with regards to the actual shooting at the school where she suffered, any charges. It was just allowing him access to the firearm. So that's basically the part, that she was involved in.
Yeah, and I actually have the form. If you guys want to see it. So here's the form. You can fill it out online, and tells you exactly the model, the gun you're looking to purchase. I just want to see, and it does ask about marijuana use as you get further down. But this is the form that's used for the background check. So definitely, if you're not filling this out correctly, you should be held liable.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened to Hunter Biden.
Yeah, he lied on that ATF, and guys, that is definitely
felony.
Yeah, it's a felony, man. Okay, let me go ahead and close this off. All right, so sorry. Did you see the form? Did I show it or no?
Yeah, it was up there.
Okay, good. All right, so let me get to the next part. So again, I as I mentioned, and kind of in partnership with Russ, at this point here, when the child can't be seen as culpable because of their age or competent, you have to go after the parents. It's just because at that point, the neglect from the parents matter, because we're seeing that in the A. Marie case as well. We're seeing that in just a lot of cases where you have young kids that are doing foolish shit, and you can't do anything to them because they're protected by juvenile laws. So now the people then hold the family responsible. You got to have some level of accountability somewhere. So, having a gun out there for the kid to access, or to even know where for the kid to even know where it is. But again, and Russ, I gotta just kind of ask this one more time. I mean, for a 6-year-old, if this kid is 6 years old, there's a lot of premeditation here, correct?
Well, I'm going to take a little bit different view on this. So I would say that probably, from both a legal standpoint and, what might be coming down the pike, and of course, not in the civil case here. This is not going to be part of the civil case, as to what they could prove or disprove with regards to a psychologist and that sort of thing. We all know, and from prior case law and so forth, that the ability of someone of that age to truly understand the impact of their actions and to try and assign something with regards to intent and planning and forethought and so forth, that's just going to be probably not part of it. I would say that, whether or not he could form intent is really questionable at 6, because at 6, those kind of things just generally aren't in there. So I don't know whether there's more coming down the pike for him with regards to that being addressed by some future psychologist or not.
No, Rush, you made a good point, because it is civil. And to be honest with you, the action occurred, and this really isn't about the kid or the mother at some point. This is also about the school and the measures that could have been taken to prevent this, because I guess you could assume, hey, we have these measures in place so it doesn't happen. So when these measures are here and you're not allowing us to do what needs to be done, you're circumventing the needed measures. So now it becomes negligence. So you're 100% right. This is more about the school's leadership. You got measures in play and you're not You're not utilizing them, which makes you more culpable. So I got the day of the shooting. I got a little bit of a timeline here. So this is section 4. There's 7 sections total, so we're halfway through, almost done. Here's the timeline. 11:15 a.m., Abby Zwerner reports the boy threatened to beat up another student. 12:20 p.m., reading specialist Amy Kovac searches the boy's backpack after 2 girls report that he brought a gun. Nothing found. The gun was in his coat pocket. 12:50 p.m., a student tells a teacher the boy showed him the gun at recess and threatened, "If you tell, I'll shoot you." Then from 12:50 to 2 p.m., at least 4 staff members raised concerns to Assistant Principal Ebony Parker. And at 2 p.m., the shot is fired in room 11. I got some testimony and staff accounts here that I want to read. So this is coming from the testimony for the civil suit. But I want to have in our back of our mind real quick that these are moments where you first hear if there's a gun school, they should have called local authorities. And I don't know if that happened. I don't know if they have to go through the principal to get that done or if they could just make the call themselves. I mean, at one point, if you got to violate, it's not policy or procedure, but, circumvent what the principal is doing or the vice principal, because you got to try to stay connected to what policy and procedure says, you're in the right. You're in the right. The person circumventing is in the wrong. So they could yell at you all you want, but you're protected by a union. You're protected by the rights of policy and procedure. So these are parts from the testimony I thought where this is from Abby. Abby first heard before recess from Kovac, who said she'd tell Dr. Parker. Abby relied on Kovac, a colleague with 20 to 30 years of experience, to report it and monitor the child. Abby texted with Kovac during recess and observed the student, but did not personally remove him or search his backpack. She believed the administration would have acted already once warned. So she's under the belief that they acted. Abby confirmed that the school handbook chart, tier 1, 2, 3 behaviors, was hanging in her classroom. Possession of a weapon appears under level 3. Immediately report to security and/or an administrator, secure students, and ensure safety. Abby described the moment of the shot and the immediate aftermath, co-workers applying pressure, and her belief that she was dying. From the staff, after the backpack search failed, Kovac and others asked to search the child's pockets, but were allegedly denied. According to witness testimony, Parker said the mother would be there soon, and she didn't want to cause hysteria. There it is. One teacher recalls, and hysteria is subjective, right? What does that really mean? Because this could have been controlled, and it doesn't mean hysteria. It just means we're going to control something. This is more about how you feel people are going to perceive something, which then relates to how you feel you are going to be perceived. One teacher recalls Parker saying his pockets are too small to hold the gun. Another was told, well, he has little pockets. A third heard, the day's almost over, let it go. There was no SRO call, no lockdown, no removal. Then during the cross-examination, defense attorneys pressed Abby on why she didn't take more direct action. Of course they're going to do that. Now they're going to put it on the victim. That's what they do, guys. So why didn't you remove the child from the classroom? Why didn't you remove or search the backpack yourself? Why didn't you call the officer SRO independently? Well, here's the funny thing. Once you call and you notify it to a higher up, you have deferred the responsibility to the person who is now supposed to do what needs to be done. So my quick question was, I wasn't given any direction to after it was forwarded up my chain of command. So the defense emphasized policy language, such as discipline is the initial responsibility of the teacher, and argued that Abby had coverage in the room and could have escalated further on her own. You know, it's funny. Just me venting real quick. We're still trying to figure it out. You don't know if there's going to be discipline that you're trying to see what has occurred. So Abby's response was she trusted Kovac's decades of experience, relied on administrators after being told the threat was reported, great answer, and followed the handbook's chain of command. Level 3 weapon possession, immediate admin notification, secure students. She did exactly that. Then the defense, I'm almost done, Russ, hold on.
Okay.
Then the defense argued back. Parker's legal team contends school safety decisions are collaborative and cooperative, not one person's sole responsibility. Multiple staff, including Abby herself, had opportunities to take direct action, remove the child's search pockets, call the SRO independently. The school threat assessment process requires triangulating multiple reports before escalating to law enforcement, especially for a 6-year-old. And Parker was awaiting, why especially for a 6-year-old? A threat's a threat. That's interesting. Parker was awaiting the mother's arrival and trying to manage the situation without causing hysteria or traumatizing special needs first graders. So the defense will likely argue that hindsight creates clarity that didn't exist in real time, and that Parker made judgment calls consistent with the school's de-escalation training for students with behavioral disabilities. And Russ, before you go into it, hold de-escalation in your minds. I know you're going to be all over that. And Abby's position, however, remains firm. She reported through proper channels, trusted her colleagues and administrators, and followed the Level 3 handbook protocol. The question is not whether she could have done more. It's whether administrators, once warned multiple times, had a duty to act decisively. So, Russ, how do we eliminate decision paralysis when credible threats surface? And what authority and culture empower staff to act instantly, even over a superior judgment? But Russ, go wherever you want to go. There's a lot here.
All right. So let's just start with the fact that, there's a lot of purposefully introduced deliberative ambiguity with regards to what they do during this policy that's supposedly at a level 3. And you have to immediately talk to who? A principal? No, this is a dial 911 kind of thing. This is immediately contact an SRO kind of thing. This is administrative action intervening itself between law enforcement authorities. So what you've got with regard to that is, this is something that purely that they've come up with, purely that they want to be in control, purely where they want to be able to sweep the crumbs that they determine need to be put under the rug away in a manner that makes them look good, irrespective of the fact that in this case, now they look really bad. And so that's all that is. She was put in a horrible position where she has to play according to their rules and try and act as a law enforcement officer with, patting the child down. No. So she was given a host of all these really bad, really bad actions that she could have taken. And then let's assume that no gun was found. Do you think that discipline would have been coming her way? Do you think that they would have let her argue that, well, there appeared to be a real threat based on information that we had? No, they would have cooked her goose. And that's because they want ambiguity to reign supreme. And that's what people in positions like this tend to do. Now, if I get back just a little bit, because I want
Russ, what you said was an amazing point. Maybe you could elaborate. You're right. When you have a supervisor, and let's say she did make a phone call, she did all this, and she turned out to be wrong, then you're right. Who knows what that supervisor would have done? So there's the fear of the position overriding her. And then you're right, possibly disciplining her for calling mass hysteria because it would make public news. And we would have seen it as being preventive. The teacher would have saw it as you caused chaos so she wouldn't have won regardless. That was a good point, Russ.
Yeah, exactly. And she's already done the main thing that she was supposed to do, which was contact her upstream chain of command. What she actually should have done, and this is not on her. This is based on what these people put into her head to try and massage and get the outcomes that they want. She should have called 911. But then she probably would have got in trouble for that. But I wanted to just go back just a little bit, talking about the premeditation. When I dealt with juveniles, the youngest that we ever dealt with was 12. So it's double this. But I wanted to look into legal ramifications, because when we talk about things with regards to things that happen in the legal realm, people will hear, well, he was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Insanity is all within the legal realm. It's not something that happens in the medical or psychological realm. It's something that's defined, through the legal system. So what I found here, and what I was trying to remember but couldn't quite, was this. No, legally, a 6-year-old cannot be assigned premeditation in the criminal law sense. Children under age 7 are presumed doli incapax, which means incapable of evil or incapable of forming criminal intent. It's an irrebuttable presumption. That means you can't pick the case, according to different things that happened in it. There's that hard cutoff of 7, right? This is an irrebuttable presumption in most jurisdictions, meaning it cannot be overcome regardless of the facts, right? And so under 7-year-old generally cannot be prosecuted criminally at all. Ages 7 to 14, and this is, of course, because we have state laws and so forth, but this is just generally the way it's looked at. Ages 7 to 14, there can be a rebuttable presumption based on a case-by-case basis. And then 14 years and older, basically we say, we kind of presume them as capable of criminal intent, unless there's something else and there's some kind of developmental disability or other thing going on. And so I just wanted to break that part down because, it'd been a while since I had been taught this in any of the academies I went to.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. No, I agree. I know when I'm doing the Amory case, Amory Jones, I was shocked that they charged the 10-year-old and the 9-year-old. I think that was actually, I think it's a good move. We'll see what happens because they're going to have to go through all this competency. But again, when you can't hold the kids, you're going to hold the parents. And I want to mention one thing. If you see with the defense, look what they do, guys. And really, this is really, I mean, I guess it's their job, but look what they do. They victim blame or they minimize. It's a very, if you could recognize the pattern, I don't care what they could try to argue, just recognize this pattern. When they know the evidence is dead against them, they will push blame on the victim. Then they will minimize their own accountability. And when they can't do that, then they fight on due process concerns. But once, and I know this as administration, I assume the responsibility once something is forward my way. That's why when we make decisions that are brought to our attention, we make decisions based on every avenue of liability. Once that teacher brought that to my way, I am not going to hold anything back. It is what it is. This is what you think you know. I don't usually get this complaint every day from this teacher. There's really no reason to question your credibility. Even I probably wouldn't be able to anyway. And I'm going to go ahead and do what needs to be done because the greater liability of not doing it. So with that said, you'll never hear from me and you'll never hear from Russ that I'm more concerned about mass hysteria, which ultimately is a perception. I'm more concerned about the liability of me one day being put on the stand like this, being told you were told and you didn't do nothing, and you're trusted in this position to make the right decision. And to be honest with you, once that was deferred into the hands of that administration there or that vice principal, all her job now to do is report. She really is not in a position to go ahead and determine if the threat is credible or not. That's not her position. And to be honest with you, it's not the teacher's position either. If the teacher comes out and says that there's a rumor, you're letting me know so I could take the next steps, because here's another reason. If I'm in the administrative role, I have more ability and more authority to make sure that I can kind of lock it down, make it as safe as possible so we can get some outside entities in. So shame on that. Shame on, the push on individual responsibility, because like this teacher said, once I made that call to that principal, that vice principal, that person's in charge, I am now waiting for direction. That's what I'm doing. I'm now waiting for direction as to see what needs to be looked into. So now I have the legal consequences, Russ, and we're going to go with the mother and Ebony Parker. Touch a little bit more on the civil suit, and then we have one more section after that, and then the takeaways. So for this part here, for the mother, as detailed in the section above, Taylor was sentenced to approximately 27 to 30 months total on federal state convictions for illegal firearm possession and felony child neglect. Hey, Russ, you have a second? Are you able to look that up? So the mother was sentenced already? That's what I got.
Yes, she was.
Okay.
She was sentenced to 21 months.
Oh, okay, because I had here Taylor was sentenced to approximately 27 to 30 months total.
They had 21 months federal and 7 months state. And
7 months what?
And 7 months state. So she faced 2 different trials apparently.
Oh, so did they do? So they did it. So what they do? It consecutive or concurrent?
Well, I'm gonna guess that that there was some kind of sentencing regard at the state level, but it doesn't specifically say because I'm pretty sure that there would have been 2 specific trials, and so at that point, it's kind of then related back to potentially 2 different judges. The judge at the state level is going to be hit by the defense attorneys with saying, hey, this needs to be run concurrently, but whether they actually did that or not, or if that's something that happens afterwards at another hearing, it doesn't specifically say in this case.
Yeah, I'm going to look it up too. I just want to make sure we give out. I agree with you and explain. All right, let me see if something comes up because I'm wondering if she got consecutive, like 1 state, 1 federal. Here's what I got. Deja Taylor story, most open parallel to her sons. At just 25 years old, she found herself in the center of one of the nation's first criminal prosecutions of a parent for a school shooting committed by a child so young. So they're probably going to want to make an example of her. Her legal troubles unfolded on 2 fronts, federal and state, each targeting a different failure tied to the same event. Federal case, lying on a firearm purchase form. Under federal law, when someone buys a firearm from a licensed dealer, they must, we talked about this, fill out an ATF form 4473, a background check document that asks about criminal history, citizenship, and drug use. Citizenship. Taylor answered no to the question about illegal drug use, even though she was a regular marijuana user. That false answer violated 18 U.S.C. subsection 922 G3, possession of firearm by an unlawful user of a controlled substance, and subsection 924A1A, making false statement. Marijuana remains illegal under federal law, even in states like Virginia that have legalized limited personal possession. Because of that mismatch, the purchase itself becomes a federal offense. When the case went to court in 2023, prosecutors emphasized that Taylor's dishonesty directly enabled her son to obtain the weapon used to shoot Abby Zwerner. Remember, they're going to hold her accountable because they can't hold the kid accountable. So they're saying she is now directly responsible. Her defense attorney argued she was a single mother struggling with depression. There goes the minimizing, as we talked about, and anxiety, self-medicating with marijuana after her father's death. But the judge, U.S. District Judge Mark S. Davis, said the stakes of her decision were too high to ignore. This was not a mistake on a form, he said. This was a deliberate falsehood that led to catastrophic harm. She was sentenced to 21 months, like Russ said, in federal prison, plus 2 years of supervised release after serving her time. Now, the state case was felony child neglect. While the federal case targeted the gun purchase, Virginia prosecutors brought separate charges for felony child neglect based on Taylor's failure to properly secure the weapon. The state argued that she knew her son had severe behavioral and emotional issues, yet left the gun unlocked and accessible in their home. Remember, she noted acute disability. That's what they were trying to argue when they were trying to minimize the son's responsibility. And now they caught themselves where you want to minimize the son, then you take on accountability. So investigators determined he climbed on a dresser to reach the Taurus 9mm pistol. And during sentencing in December of 2023, Taylor wept in court saying, "I wish I could undo it all. I'm sorry for what my son did and for what Miss Zwerner went through." The court noted her prior clean record, but stressed the extraordinary negligence of allowing a gun within reach of a 6-year-old with documented history of aggression. She was sentenced to 2 years in state prison. The state judge allowed her federal and state sentence to run concurrently, meaning at the same time, not back to back, effectively making her total confinement about 27 to 30 months. So the broader legal meaning is Taylor combined conviction sends a nationwide message. If parents can face serious prison time for unsafe firearm storage when a child's access leads to tragedy, the line between accident and negligence has shifted. Courts are now treating parental gun negligence more like a criminal act than a mistake. And her case is frequently cited in state-level debates about safe storage laws and child access prevention statutes, which in many states carry only minor fines. In the aftermath, Taylor told reporters through her attorney that she supports stronger laws requiring gun owners to lock firearms and store ammunition separately, something that might have prevented her son's access entirely. I want to just get a picture of her just so we have it. So that makes sense, Russ. It looks like... So most likely she's probably on a federal sentence, but maybe she's doing she's doing it consecutively in a state prison because that is the longer sentence. So this may be her.
No, yeah. See, I mean, both of those are pretty close, and it's hard to say. But what I found is that supposedly she's actually in a federal prison, but with journalists being the paragons of absolute factuality, it's really hard to say.
No, but you're right, Russ. So let me see. I can tell you which prison she's at now. I think you're right. She's doing her first set of, and then she'll probably have to be transferred to state. Actually, doesn't confirm here. Hold on. Is she? Let me just ask. Hold on. She in a federal prison or a state prison at this point? Let me see. According to records, Deja Taylor has completed her federal sentence, 21 months for firearm drug violation, is now serving a 2-year state sentence in Virginia. So I remember this happened in 2023. For Dr. Ebony Parker, so let's get to her now because this is interesting. Let me show you what she looks like. Let me show you a picture of her. I think we saw her in the video we showed. Let me just, I want to show you what she looks like. So hold on. Dr. Ebony Parker school shooting. So remember, guys, we're trying to figure this out as it goes. I just want to show pictures so we can have a face next to these. Dr. Ebony Parker. I think this would be her right here. So this comes from CNN. And let me just ensure. This is, former Richneck Elementary School Assistant Principal Ebony Parker. And this is during the civil lawsuit. Right here, Russ.
Yeah.
That's her. All right, so now let's get to her. So in October 2023, a grand jury indicted Parker on 8 felony counts of child neglect, 1 for each student endangered by her alleged failure to act. Each count carries up to 5 years in prison. Parker has pleaded not guilty, and as of early 2025, her trial remains pending. If convicted, she could face decades behind bars, a potentially historic case of individual administrator criminal accountability. Zwerner civil case, current status. Amy Zwerner filed a $40 million negligent lawsuit against Assistant Principal Ebony Parker, Principal Brianna Foster of Newton. Principal Brianna Foster Newton, Superintendent George Parker III, and Newport News School Board. There are initial dismissals. The court dismissed claims against the superintendent and school board, citing sovereign immunity. Government entities are generally shielded from liability unless immunity is waived. Lack of foreseeability. Top-level officials could not have reasonably predicted a 6-year-old would shoot a teacher. And 3, workers' compensation exclusivity. Workplace injuries are typically covered solely through workers' comp, barring lawsuits. But the judge made a groundbreaking exception. The court ruled that being shot by a student is not a foreseeable occupational hazard for a teacher, unlike, say, a construction worker injured by equipment. This allowed Zwerner's case to proceed against Parker personally. The workers' comp battle that shocked educators. Initially, the school district workers' compensation insurer denied Zwerner's claim entirely, arguing that being shot by a student is not a foreseeable occupational hazard for teachers and therefore not covered as a workplace injury. That's insane. Denial.
You know what? But I'm gonna say this is that's probably true until you get to the point where it's known that there's a gun on the grounds and then no one takes over. So you can say that, hey, yeah, that's not foreseeable. But on that day, it was foreseeable. It became foreseeable.
I got shot.
And not only did she get shot, she was expected to take action, which she did. So she was taking action within her capacity as a teacher. And so at that point, it is foreseeable.
Yeah. And that's a great point because it was foreseeable and also possibly preventable. The denial sparked national outrage. Teachers' unions asked if gunshot wounds aren't a foreseeable risk. What does that say about the state of American schools? The decision was eventually overturned, but the fight crystallized the grim reality. The legal system had no framework for teachers being shot by elementary students because no one imagined it could happen. Zwerner's lawsuit argues the opposite. It was foreseeable because administrators were warned repeatedly and chose inaction, just like Russ said. Yeah, just like you said, Russ. So current trial status, only Parker remains as a defendant in the civil case. Plaintiff has rested. Abby's testimony was the final piece of the plaintiff's case. The court spent a full day finalizing jury instruction. Trial is paused until the defense begins next week, and it remains unclear whether Parker will testify in her own defense. So me and Russ will keep cover of this, and maybe we'll revisit this Friday next week or Saturday morning. We'll follow up on the case and see how she presents herself, if she does. And the defense attorneys have stated they will show that school security and decision-making are collaborative and cooperative. So again, they're going to pass the buck. Process is not the sole responsibility of one administrator. So why $40 million? The figure reflects lifelong medical care, surgeries, pain management, physical therapy, lost future income as a teacher because she can't be a teacher now, permanent disability, loss of hand function and chronic pain, and psychological trauma, severe PTSD, ongoing therapy, and punitive damages to hold parties accountable. Supposedly she's gotten into cosmetology and is also having trouble doing what she wants to do in that area. If Zwerner prevails, payment would come from Parker's legal indemnification provided by the district and the district's liability insurance, not Parker's personal assets alone. So, Russ, should one administrator carry civil liability for a system-wide failure, or should responsibility extend to the district level? And where does personal duty end and institutional duty begin?
Well, yeah, I think those are pretty loaded. This is just what I would say is that we see repeated failures within our educational systems, and not just about student safety or things like that, but just a failure to even teach at a lot of schools. Where you have all of these systems where all of the test scores are down and suppressed over many years, and here's going to be a hot take that everyone's going to hate, but I think that a lot of this can be laid at the institutional level and at the teachers union levels, because there just is no accountability. The actual existence of the teachers union is, predicated on relieving them of accountability. And so that's my hot, unpopular take for today.
No, Russ, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, listen, when you take these higher level positions, you are responsible for the overall outcome. It is what it is. It connects to the position. It connects to the salary. I mean, when you look at what these positions make, they make good money. And that money comes with not just the job, but the responsibility of the outcome of that job. Because I could tell you as administration, the job is hard, but most of the hard work is being done by the positions below me. The reason why I make a little more is because I have the responsibility of the outcome. And that's really not something that I can defer. Even as a vice principal, I can't defer that. So with that said, I would say indecision at that time, or just wanting not to promote mass hysteria, I think is a foolish argument. I mean, my argument would be just take onus of it. You know what? Unfortunately, it was a bad judgment call. I just didn't think there was enough facts to run with it. And later on, sadly, this happened. But instead of me, trying to save face, trying to minimize it, just take that accountability. Because, it's sad to say we're usually paid to make good decisions. But you know what, though? In the end, if I made a bad decision in that moment, and I sit there and take onus of it afterwards, it's not the best, but it's a lot better than trying to push it on the victim or trying to push it somewhere else where it doesn't belong. You're paid to take the responsibility. And at the end of the day, you're not in a position to push any of that responsibility aside, especially to save your own ass. But, it comes with the position. You want the money, you get the responsibility. So now I have... this next part, Russ. let's see, the aftermath. So policy changes and personal recovery, and then we just got the takeaway. So this is the last part. So Abby Zwerner today, in testimony given during the civil trials, Zwerner described her ongoing struggles. So physical, she still cannot open a bag of chips without assistance or pain. You could see it in her hand. Her left hand's grip strength is less than half of normal, and writing on a whiteboard central to teaching is now impossible. So this is her writing hand, which makes sense. When you go to protect yourself, you probably use your first instinct is to use the stronger hand, I'm assuming. Psychological, severe PTSD with recurring nightmare of the shooting, panic attacks triggered by loud noises, fear of confined space and crowded environments, and she canceled attending Hamilton after realizing the duel scene would be triggering. Employment. She earned a cosmetology license in an attempt to start a new career, but the repetitive hand motion required proved too painful to sustain. She now requires help and extra time for basic tasks. Her right hand has developed overuse pain from compensating. Job prospects remain severely limited. When asked in court if she would ever return to teaching, she said, "I love teaching. I just can't go back." Leadership changes. In May of 2023, Superintendent George Parker III resigned under pressure. Principal Brianna Foster Newton was reassigned and later left the district. Assistant Principal Ebony Parker was placed on administrative leave, later resigned, and was subsequently indicted on criminal charges. The district's leadership was essentially overhauled within months of the shooting. So we have a lot to catch up or follow up on in this case. The special grand jury report, a tragic chain of failures. In May of 2023, a special grand jury convened to investigate the shooting, issued a scathing report. Richneck administrators were notified multiple times of the firearm and the threat it posed, yet they demonstrated a total disregard for the safety of students and staff. Key findings were at least 4 warnings were documented between 11:15 a.m. and 2 o'clock p.m. There was no immediate action was taken despite clear threat assessment protocols. The tragedy was preventable with appropriate administrative response, as systemic issues included inadequate supervision of high-risk students, like Russ had mentioned, and failure to enforce IEP safety requirements. The report stopped short of recommending criminal charges for all involved, but its conclusion directly supported the indictment of Ebony Parker and the civil case against her. It also prompted statewide reviews of school threats, assessment policies, and special education supervision standards. Now, the school district response, Richneck Elementary closed for weeks after the shooting. When it reopened, visible changes were in place. They had permanent security officers stationed on site, walk-through metal detectors at all entrances, clear backpacks required for all students, revised threat assessment protocols with mandatory escalation procedures, and administrative leadership overall. The Newport News School District also purchased 90 metal detectors, enough to equip every school in the system. What should have existed before is now obvious. Experts and educators now point to additional safeguards that might have prevented the tragedy. Automatic SRO police involvement after any weapon report, daily escort and screening for flagging high-risk behavioral students, parent compliance audits when IEP safety conditions are altered, teacher override authority when administration declines action in imminent threat scenarios, and anonymous tip systems with guaranteed follow-through and accountability. And the teacher override authority, I think that's very important to put in. National impact. Go ahead, Russ.
I was gonna say, but this is all, a bunch of, hindsight bias after the fact stuff. Why is it that you have to put in that you have to contact law enforcement now with regards to any firearm issue that came up? I mean, why does that have to be in there? That is something that should be common sense, and yet it's not. And yet these are the facilities, these are the institutions that we trust with our children. But they can't seem to be able to understand how important that is from their perspective. And so my question is just, why are we trusting our kids with institutions that can't even figure out that tiny little thing? How many other things are we overlooking where they are just, missing the boat completely?
Well, you know what, Russ, you're so spot on, because sometimes in an effort to cover your ass, you kind of over document things, which tend to make it more confusing. It becomes more bureaucratic, more layer by layer, as opposed to allowing people within the moment to handle what needs to be handled. Because what these cases wind up doing is deferring responsibility back and forth, playing the blame game. And then what happens when you're in the middle is like, you know what, if both these parties want to play the blame game, then I'm going to have to solidify roles. But the problem is, in real time, it becomes a bit more complicated. You know, you may have memorized policy, but there's so many layers here that it eliminates real-time discretion. You know, and I think that's always going to be a concern, when at the end of the day, if we truly get at the problem and what happened, we had a lady that was in a higher position that failed to react. That's what she did. Now, we can create all these layers based on, you know, what's coming up with the blame game, but you don't want to make it so complex that when you need to act on something immediately, you know, you don't know which layer of responsibility you belong to. And this happens a lot. This is when, instead of someone taking honest, having integrity with a concern, they wind up deferring, they wind up minimizing, and now you literally got to do a step-by-step guide on something that winds up eliminating discretion, when at the end, if you would just admit that what you did was wrong, we don't have to bastardize stuff that's already been working. We don't have to bastardize people's victims. Just, you know, this is what you did wrong, and what really has to change is the leadership. That's what really has to change. Now, I have two more areas for the last question to you, Russ. So this is the national impact. The Richneck shooting reverberated far beyond Newport news. Multiple states introduced or strengthened safe storage laws requiring firearms to be locked away from minors. School districts nationwide revisited threat assessment policies and administrative accountability structures, and teachers' unions intensified calls for clear workplace protections and legal definitions of acceptable occupational risk. Abby Zwerner's case became a rallying cry. Teachers should not have to risk their lives to teach first grade. A little sidebar here is the IEP protocols for context of a shooting. When a 6-year-old is involved in a violent act like bringing a gun to school, the question many ask is, how could this happen if the child was already identified as having special needs and an IEP in place? To answer that, we have to understand what the IEP protocol is designed to do and what its limits are. So you could see if this was acted by the educator, the assistant principal, the student's IEP status. Reports confirm that the child who shot Abby Zwerner was receiving special education services under Individualized Education Program, IEP, due to behavioral and emotional challenges. Under IDEA, and the IEP team's role is to identify and accommodate those needs, not to punish or isolate the student, but to create support that allows them to function in schools. This means he was likely identified as having a disability affecting emotional regulation and behavior, possibly under emotional disturbance. His plan probably included a behavioral intervention plan, that's a BIP, daily support, and a one-on-one aid, which according to the school district, he had at all times prior to the day of the shooting. The IEP protocol and behavioral red flags. So under the IEP process, when a student shows escalating behavior, aggression, threats, violent outbursts, the school must document each incident, convene the IEP team to review interventions, consider a functional behavioral assessment, and update the behavior intervention plan, and decide whether the behavior indicates the need for more intensive services or alternative placement, like a specialized behavioral school. And that could have happened, like Les said in the first incident with the rear naked choke. In this case, the protocol appears to have failed in follow-through. Teachers reportedly warned administrators multiple times about the child's aggression and threats, but no emergency IEP meeting was called. That meeting would have been the legal mechanism to review whether the child's placement was still appropriate or safe. And the role of least restrictive environment. IDEA requires that all students, even those with severe behavioral issues, be taught in the least restrictive environment possible. That means schools must try every reasonable support before removing a child from a general education classroom. Very similar to what we do in prisons, by the way, with inmates that are hard to manage, because we also have management control. So we're following a lot of what this does. But in this case, the child's previous IEP may have required a one-on-one aid for constant supervision. On the day of the shooting, that aid was not present, reportedly due to scheduling or staffing gaps, and this absence created a critical breakdown in the IEP safety framework, both for the child and others. The disciplinary limits under IEP law When a child with an IEP commits a serious infraction like bringing a weapon, there are special disciplinary protocols. Schools must hold a manifestation determination review within 10 school days to determine if the behavior was a manifestation of the child's disability. If the answer is yes, the school cannot suspend or expel the student in the traditional way. They must adjust supports. They must adjust supports instead. If no, standard discipline can apply, but the IEP still must follow the child. However, because this case involved a 6-year-old, criminal prosecution, like Russ said, was off the table under Virginia law, minimum age 7 for criminal culpability. The accountability questions then shifted entirely to the school district, its IEP compliance, and the parent's role. So real quick. So you have the stage, which is identification first. So the behavior is identified, supports provided, and here what likely went wrong is supports were in place but not truly implemented. Then you have the intervention. That's the next stage. Escalating behavior triggers IEP review. Staff warned of danger, no urgent meeting called. Then you got the placement, adjust environment if safety risk. Student kept in classroom despite warning. Then you got the supervision, one-on-one aid required at all times, aid absent the day of shooting. And then the safety plan, continuous review and communication. Administrators dismissed teachers' concerns. So the Abby Zwerner case reignited national discussion about IDA's protections, which are vital for supporting children with disabilities, can collide with school safety obligations when a child's behavior becomes violent. We deal with this in corrections all the time. Key questions include, how far should least restrictive environment go when other students or staff are endangered? When does IEP stop being an educational plan and start becoming a liability risk? Russ is going to touch on that. I guarantee you that. And should laws allow for faster placement changes in extreme behavioral cases? So the IEP protocol is not just paperwork. It's a legal roadmap for balancing a child's right to education with the safety of others. Russ, we are dealing with this today in corrections. In this shooting, every sign points to a breakdown in that roadmap. The process was in place, but the follow-through, communication, emergency review were not. Russ, I know we're a little off track, but it is related to the case. Russ, does that sound familiar in corrections?
Yeah, I can just tell you right now. Okay, so right now they keep using that term. It's the roadmap, right? The problem is that all of these plans and things that they put in place too often are things that are actually speed bumps on that roadmap. And they're actually impediments towards, progressing down the roadway, if you will, rather than methods, for effecting safety and security. And that's just the truth. People, they first of all, they want to spend all this time jargonizing, right? They want to put in place all these things so they can say, yeah, I came up with that. I came up with this. And instead of a bunch of direct action, they muddy the water and they make it impossible to actually take any action. And I think that, and this is the difference that you'll see between the consummate, correctional professional, if you will. I don't know how to equate it or what the potential, counterpart would be in education, between the corrections professional and the person who is peeing on their territory.
And guys, as we get to the last part, just want you guys to know, guys, it's not too complex. Safety and security versus rehabilitation. You kind of see it in schools here as more safety and security versus the education. Let's say the IEP, the one with the behavioral issues. There really is no conflict. They're not equals in comparison. Safety and security is always paramount. Without safety and security, you don't have a balanced classroom. And I'm not saying you have to sacrifice the rights of one to help the many, but you do have to make a safe environment. And at the end of the day, is I know everybody wants to try to coddle these behaviors, but sometimes you just can't in the moment. Let's just say that you just can't in the moment. And it's not a failure. It's just you can't in the moment. The failure becomes when you don't identify it in the moment. And you try exhausting all these efforts that are just not working. And at the end of the day, you put everybody at risk because you're trying to guarantee some control of behaviors that you just cannot control. Sometimes success comes when you identify that there's really not much more that you can do with this individual.
Anthony,
Russ, there's one. Okay, I have one last question.
I have to dip out. I am at the edge of my parameter right now.
Oh, okay, that's fine. I'm going to close up now anyway, Russ.
All right, everyone, stay safe out there. It's been a pleasure.
Make sure you charge those phones. Later, brother. All right, so guys, just to finish up, let me get this out. So we talked about this earlier. Do metal detectors and clear bags make schools safer? Did a paper cover deeper failures in threat assessment, supervision, home gun? Guys, it is what it is. You have to have fail safes in play, and that's just to protect each layer, because you got to figure at the end of the day, we're going to have these concerns. So we have to do what we can to ensure that the environment is safe. So key takeaways in moving forward. What this case teaches us. Age is not a guarantee of safety. A 6-year-old can access a firearm and pull the trigger. Innocence does not equal harmlessness. And guys, when I talk about the school, it's about letting the kids understand why these things are in play. It doesn't look like a war zone, but there should be enough things in play to protect our children, just like we do, protecting our money, other assets. Warning ignored equals life's endangered. Multiple staff foresaw danger, but bureaucracy, hesitation, and dismissiveness allowed it to unfold. Parental responsibility is non-negotiable. Safe storage laws exist for a reason. Negligence has consequences legally, morally, and tragically. Administrative accountability is evolving. Inaction by school leaders can now result in both civil liability and felony charges. The days of plausible deniability are fading. Prevention is multi-layered. Behavioral health support, family oversight, staff empowerment, and physical security must work together, not in isolation. And trauma lasts long after the headlines. Physical recovery may plateau. Psychological scars often never heal. Survivors carry the weight for life. Where do we go from here? So these are some of the unanswered questions we have. As the civil trial resumes and Parker's criminal case looms, several questions remain unresolved. Will Virginia mandate safe storage laws with criminal penalties? Currently, Virginia law does not regulate firearms to be locked away from minors. Deja Taylor's conviction relief on federal law. Deja Taylor's conviction relied on federal law. They got it for the neglect. Advocates are pushing for state-level safe storage requirements with enforcement teeth. Thank God the federal law was able to pick up on that. Will schools empower teachers to override administrators in emergencies? Abby followed protocol and protocol failed. Should teachers have authority to independently call law enforcement when they believe a threat is imminent, even if superior disagree? What happens to high-risk students when inclusion meets safety? The boy in this case had a documented violent behavior and an IEP requiring intensive support. When those supports are removed, who's responsible for protecting everyone, including the child? Let's keep the child in play. Can metal detectors in security theater replace judgment? Richneck now has walk-through detectors and clear backpacks, but the gun was in the child's pocket after a backpack search failed. Technology cannot substitute for human vigilance and decision-making. And will other administrators face charges to future school violence cases? Parker's indictment may set precedents. If you are warned and do nothing, you may be criminally liable. And this could fundamentally shift from how school leaders respond to threats. And that makes sense. Now, the legacy of Room 11. Abby Zwerner will never teach again. 6-year-old will carry the weight of what he did for the rest of his life. A mother's in prison. An assistant principal may join her. And across the country, teachers are asking, am I safe in my classroom? Will anyone listen if I raise the alarms? Is this just part of the job now? The answer should be no. But until systems change, until warnings are heeded, guns are secured, and accountability runs through every level of leadership, teachers will keep paying the price for a society that refuses to act. So here's some haunting questions. Abby Zwerner's case forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. How many warnings does it take before someone listens? And perhaps more urgently, how many more teachers will pay the price for systems that fail to act? Final reflection. This wasn't a case of hidden threat or an unpredictable tragedy. This was a cascade of visible, reported, documented red flags ignored at every level. The gun was brought to school. Students reported it. Teachers escalated it. Administrators dismissed it. And a 25-year-old teacher paid for it with her body, her career, and her peace of mind. So the lesson is peacefully simple. Believe the warning. Empower the people on the front line to act, because the next time it might not be a teacher who survives to tell the story. So, hope you guys enjoyed the content. As always, guys, stay safe.